Hey guys, Gimpy Jeep Guy here. So tonight we're doing something kind of interesting. I'm getting ready to go out to a rock crawling competition this week up in Delta, Utah, called the Delta Classic Rock Crawls. One of the best events in the country. It's so much fun. I love it. It's just a laid-back, easy-going competition, perfect for beginners and stuff like that. But one thing that I wanted to show you that I thought you guys might be kind of interested in, especially for those guys that are getting into the competition scene, or maybe you're new to the buggy life or something like that, is we actually are going to be adding water to my tires, the front of my tires in my buggy. What this does is helps add extra weight to the front to keep you have better traction by keeping your center of gravity low, also helping those front tires be able to dig easier, things like that, especially on the real steep climbs and steep obstacles. Delta is a man-made rock crawling course, and they have some really gnarly climbs. A little bit nervous about them, so I figured anything that I can do to give me a little bit of an advantage, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to show you how to add water to the front tires on the buggy. I've got my girlfriend here, Simple Sarah. She's going to be helping me out doing this tonight. So I'll go ahead and show you what we're going to do here. Let me switch camera around. All right, so here is Simple Sarah.
Hi guys.
So this is my buggy here. So this is my 40-inch Maxxis sticky trapdoors, and we're going to go ahead and add water up to the top of the wheel. So a couple things that we have already done tonight is we've already gone ahead and jacked up the Jeep or the buggy. You can see we've got the jack underneath there and a jack stand. Of course, the buggy is in park for safety factors. We went ahead and did the other side already just to make sure that we knew what we were doing. So hopefully we don't look too stupid. So we've gone ahead and jacked this up. The tire is off the ground so we can move it. We've gotten the valve core, so it's at the valve stem up at the very top of the wheel. So that way we can go ahead and add the water and it'll come up to the very top of our wheel. That should add, if my math is correct, about 12,000 cubic inches of water when you take the diameter of the wheel minus the diameter of the tire minus the diameter of the wheel. And so doing the math on that, that equals about 40 gallons to the top of the wheel, which is roughly 330 pounds of weight. So that'll be extra weight that'll add to this vehicle to help keep me planted when I'm doing the big climbs. So first thing we have to do is we have to pull the valve core out of the valve stem. So Simple Sarah is going to go ahead and show us how to do that. So
before we get started, I want to show you guys how we're going to use this. So this is actually an adapter that I got at the local farmer's tractor store. Now, the farmers out there know exactly what this is. They put water in their front tires because these are tires. Obviously, we know they can't be balanced. This is going to help out with that. This comes with different nipples that go on it and a bleeder valve so you can get your air out of it at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and take out the valve stem.
These tires, we keep air down quite a bit. I usually run between about 8 and 10 PSIs. There's not a whole lot of air to begin with. But obviously when you're taking out the valve core, you want to be real careful. Make sure that valve core doesn't go shooting out there because it's held in with a little spring. If you're not careful with the air pressure in there, it'll shoot it off and you'll never see it again. So be real careful when you're taking out that valve core. You'll kind of feel all of a sudden it'll pop loose just like that. And then the air starts coming out. And you can see you got the little valve core there. And that way the air can kind of just bleed on out of the tire. We'll wait, like I said, it won't take very long till that's empty. And then we'll go ahead and get the little adapter hooked up, and then we just had it attached to our garden hose, and we'll go ahead and start putting some water in the tire. So you've got this little adapter here. It comes with a couple different size adapters. This valve stem on this buggy are really short to keep them from getting caught on rocks. So it's kind of a little bit difficult to get this adapter on there. But we figured out on the other side, if you twist it just right, we can get it to attach.
And hold your tongue just right.
Yeah. Usually the valve stems are a little bit longer, and so it shouldn't be as much of a problem. But because I rub up against rocks and stuff like that, the guy that built this wanted to keep those valve stems protected, and he put them up there real tight behind that beadlock ring. Obviously, for those that don't know, this is a beadlock wheel. And so that's what those bolts on the outside do, is they hold that outer bead on. So even at low pressures, it cannot come off the wheel. So there you go. You can see that hose starting to move. Don't know if you can hear that or not, but there's water starting to go into the tire. It took us on the other side probably about 20 minutes or so Like I said, if my math is correct, we're adding something around 40 gallons to this tire by bringing it up to the top of the wheel. Doing the entire tire all the way full to the very top would be about 52 gallons. So I figure probably about 40 gallons going up to the top of the wheel.
Now, while using this adapter, you do have to stop it every once in a while and burp the air out. If you try burping it with the water running, it actually sprays water out. So you have to turn it off. We learned that the hard way, by the way. Ask David while he's all wet. Anyway, so we do have to turn the water off to burp the air out and then continue to fill it. That's why it takes so long. Other than that, it's simple, easy, and I am very pleased with this. It costs $15 at the local tractor store, guys.
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and let this fill for a little bit, and then we'll come back at the end to show you kind of how we check it and what we do. And then after that, we do need to add a little bit of air back into the tire to keep about that 8 to 10 PSI. And then hopefully we should be all good. So we'll let this fill and come back in just a minute. All right, guys, so we've gone ahead and added all the water to it. The way you can tell is with that little bleeder valve on the end of that little adapter. When you push it, and you can hear that there's pretty much no more air coming out of it. There's just a little bit of water coming out. That's a pretty good indication that the tire is pretty much full to the top of the wheel. So now the only way to really test it, at least as far as we know, is just take the adapter off, and if water comes out, then basically you let it drain, and it'll drain down to where it's at the top of the wheel. And then that's where we want it. And then we'll put our valve core back in. And so apparently there's still a little bit of water left in it. You can see it squirting out here just a wee bit. But makes an awesome sound. I don't know if you guys can hear that real well, but it's like the best whoopee cushion ever. Oh my goodness. You just record that sound and play it randomly when people are walking through the grocery store. So couple things is one of the reasons that I go to the top of the wheel is I was talking to my good friend Dave Wong. He was over here the other day putting some window tinting on my Willys pickup, and you guys can watch that video. I recorded that process. But he says the reason that you go to the top of the wheel is because that way when you're driving it has less of a tendency to slosh around and stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about making your driving being erratic or weird, because the water will pretty much, with a centrifugal force, keep the tire fill and not slop around as you're bouncing and bumping and things like that. Another thing to consider is that this is an aluminum wheel, so I don't have to worry about it rusting. If this was a steel wheel, you'd have a little bit more concerned about the inside of the wheel rusting. And so I know a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll actually put some coolant, some antifreeze like you put in your motor in there, in order to kind of offset the water so it's less likely to rust. So, again, I kind of went to the top of the wheel because I was shooting for around 300 or so pounds on each side, which will give me about 600 pounds total. One thing that Dave does is he wants a little bit more weight in his, so he runs steel shot in his. So he puts about 200 pounds of steel shot, and then he puts in about 300 pounds of water. And what he does, he actually has a little scale that goes on the bottom of the tire that he can set the rig on, and that way he just fills it up until he gets right about 500 pounds. And does it that way. But Dave's a little fancier than I am, and I'm just doing it kind of the getaway, and I think it'll work. So this is kind of what we're doing. So at this point, pretty much you can see it's done leaking. So Simple Sarah here is going to go ahead and put the valve core back in it. And then at that point, we'll go ahead and add some more air to it. Like I said, in this rig, because I have these old school Trepidor stickies, they have kind of a stiffer inner bead lock, and so sometimes I'll lose an inner bead if I run too low a weight. So I'm going to run these at probably about 10 PSI, and that way hopefully that inner bead, especially with the water, will stay connected. So that's kind of where we're at. We'll come back in just a few minutes, kind of wrap up, but thank you, Simple Sarah. Appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
Have fun this weekend.
We're going to try.
Absolutely.
Don't have to bake anything.
Yes.
Me
yes.
or you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, so last little thing we're going to do here is go ahead and add some air pressure to this tire. There's a lot less volume now because most of the tire's filled up with water, so it's not going to take nearly as much air as it did before. Like I said, with these tires, I found that the best is about 10 PSI. Now that I'm running water in them, I could maybe run a little bit lower because I've got, some more extra weight pushing in on the inside bead, but I'll run 10 for this competition because I certainly don't want to risk losing a bead. So we've got our cool little gauge here that we just hook right up onto the valve stem and it locks on. And then we squeeze the trigger and it fills up with pressure, and then you let go of the trigger and it gives you a pretty good reading on what we're at. So again, didn't take very long. There's not a whole lot of pressure in there. So 10 psi, boom, and we are done. Put the valve cap back on, and this side is ready to go. So Simple Sayer's going to go over and do the other side. And then one little thing that I did want to talk about that some of you guys sitting at home may have noticed, that this is a 5-lug axle. And you might be thinking, man, this guy's stupid if he's adding water to a 5-lug axle. Well, let me tell you, this is an old school rig. When we get back from Delta, I'll do a full walk around on it. But this rig was built by Craig Stump, and he was one of the original rock crawlers way back in the day. So these wheels are probably about 20 years old. And back then, almost everybody was running 5-on-5.5 lug pattern. So while this is a Dana 60, it is converted to 5-on-5.5 lug pattern. And so that's why we have the 5 lug on here, but I promise you, it is a Dana 60. Another thing that's kind of interesting about this wheel is this is the very first set of Walker Evans polished aluminum wheels. When Craig talked to Walker back in the early 2000s about building these wheels, Walker was like, no, nobody's going to want a polished aluminum wheel. But Craig was persistent and had him build some. And so that's what these are. These are the very, very, very first set of Walker Evans polished aluminum wheels built for Craig, specifically with that 5-on-5.5 lug pattern. So now let me see if I can scooter over here and show you that this is indeed a Rock Jock Dana 60. So you see, it's not a little 3/4 ton axle like a Dana 30 or Dana 44 even. You know, this is the full 1-ton axle. Got the aluminum knuckles on it, the pivoted differential in order to get better ground clearance, full hydro, all the goodies. So there we go. That's our Dana 60. That's our video about airing up the tires. So we appreciate you joining us, and we will see you soon. So this is the Gimpy Jeep Guy signing off. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share my videos. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the backside of Delta.